Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be going through a LeetCode question. Now the question that we're going to go through in this video is going to be called running sum of 1D array. This question is categorized as an easy according to LeetCode, so it's perfect for anyone that's just starting out trying to practice their coding interview questions. So in this video I'm going to be giving you a solution to the running sum of a 1D array, but I'm also going to be giving my thought process. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to just start off by selecting whatever language you want. For this example I'm going to use JavaScript. And we can start by reading down through the question at hand. So given an array of nums, we define a running sum of an array as running sum I equals sum num0 equals nums I. So let's go down to the example, so that might make a little bit more sense. So you can see in our input for our nums array we have 1, 2, 3 and 4, and our output should be 1, 3, 6 and 10. So basically what's happening here is when we go and check our first element, which is 1, we want to add that to our output array, and then when we get to our second input, which is 2, we want to add this to whatever current sum we have. So before we get to 2 we just have 1, so 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, and that's where we get this number 3 out of. And then as we follow on and we go to our third element, which is 3, we add 3 along with all our previous elements, which is 2 and 1, so 3, 2 and 1 is equal to 6. And then finally when we get to our final element, which is 4, we add 4 along with all our other elements, so 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 10, and that's how we get our output. If you're interested in looking into this question yourself, if you go to LeetCode and you just type in 1480, that's the problem number. It's also called running sum of 1D array, so if you type in the number or the name of the question, it'll come up for you. So let's get into it. So we can see that we have a function defined here as running sum, and we can see that this is equal to a function which we're getting a parameter, and the parameter that we're taking in is nums. So we can understand that these nums here will be an array. So for example 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now when we get inside our function we need to perform some operations to get this output, so we need to return this output array here. So we know first of all we're going to have to return something, so we can just put in our return statement here just to remind us that we're going to be returning something, and we want to return an array. So we want to go and define an array that we want to return, so you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it return array, and I'm going to equal that to an empty array. You can see I'm using the let keyword here in JavaScript because this array will change throughout time, so that's why I'm using the let rather than the const keyword. And this is actually going to be what we're going to return, so we can say return this array. Okay, brilliant. So now we have our array that we know that we're going to get our new variables put into, and we're going to return that array as our output. Now we need to find out how we're going to populate this array. So we need to loop through all the different elements in the array. So we could use a for loop if we wanted, or we could use a for each statement. So JavaScript has this built-in function called for each, which can be performed on any array, so I'm gonna use for each method. So we can do this by just stating nums dot for each, and now within this for each statement we're going to take in a function, and this function will go and perform our iterations. I'm actually going to use an arrow function just because I feel it's a little bit cleaner. So we can do this by putting in our round brackets and putting in what we're going to pass. So we're passing through numbers, so we can just say n, and in fact we don't actually need those brackets, so I'm going to take those away. And then we're going to put in our fat arrow, and now we're going to actually get down to what we want to do. So when I loop through each element, I want to go and add it and push it to the return array. So if I had something that would track the total of the previous elements, that would be really good. So I'm actually going to define a variable. Now I'm going to define this variable outside this for each statement, because if I define it inside the for each statement, every time that the for each statement is run, the variable will be overwritten. So I don't want that. So I'm going to define it out here. I'm going to use let, and I'm just going to say num total. I'm going to set that equal to 0 because that's where we're going to be starting, right? And now inside our for each statement, I can say that I want to change my num total to whatever the next element is. So for example, the first time I iterate through this for each method, the number will be 1. The second time I iterate through it, it'll be 2, then it'll be 3, and then it'll be 4. So I'm going to say num total plus equals to n, because n is what we're getting each time. And then after I've made this calculation to num total, I want to push this, or I want to add this to my return array. So I can say return array, and now I want to perform an operation on the return array. So I want to go and add the current num total. So I can do this by using the push method, and inside this push method I'm going to add num total. And before we go and run this, we've actually made a small little mistake here. We need a round bracket at the end there just to finish this off, otherwise it won't compile, and we have a typo here. So this should be return, so that should be return array. Now if we go and run this, we should be successful. So now you can see that our solution has been accepted. So our input has been 1, 2, 3, 4, and our output is 1, 3, 6, 10, which is exactly what's expected. So I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content. Thank you. Have a good day.